Hello, and welcome to my second video. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating something very specific, a technique that I've learned in painting castings. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but I hope you had a chance to do the walkthrough video, take a look at the project behind me, and all the things that I have to do, a little bit overwhelming at times, actually quite overwhelming. But today, what I'm going to do is the first of a lot of videos like this, where I'm going to be demonstrating a technique. I had I take no ownership for creating these techniques. This is done by Brett Gallett of Sierra West, and that is the Craftsman kit I'm working on. And but my theme is that, you know, all those amazing work you've been looking at online and thinking, oh God, there's no way I can do that. Well, I was that person and I did it. So yes, you can do it. And specifically, I highly encourage you to, if you haven't looked at kind of Sierra West, and you're into or interested in Craftsman kits and all the techniques that go along with it, like weathering wood and weathering castings, which we'll do today, check his videos out. You can go to his website and watch an expert do what I'm going to do today. But again, my theme is that if I can do it, you can do it. It really is easy. There's no magic that he has that allowed him to do what he does. I'm just getting started, and while it may not be perfect, you know, it's incredibly impressive and fits exactly what I'm looking for. Some really beautiful work that can fit into my layout. And so why don't we take a look? I'll move over to the workbench and I'll demonstrate these techniques. Okay, we're back at the workbench. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be demonstrating a couple techniques. I have to deal with painting, a resin casting for a model that I've been working on. This is a model from Sierra West, and I absolutely highly recommend, if you're interested in attempting, or even if you have some experience doing Craftsman kits, check out Sierra West. Their kits are amazing. The detail is phenomenal, and the instruction manual provided, this one is over 120 pages, 128 pages long, go into such detail that someone like me who's never done a Craftsman kit can create this on their first try. And this is my first attempt at a Craftsman kit. So where I'm at now is structures are done, and I need to detail the scenes out, and I've never done that before. So this has been quite the learning process. And as mentioned, in those 128 pages, Brett gives into all kinds of detail on how to do each of these techniques. So, you know, you can create things that, you know, are equivalent to that stuff you've been admiring online, like I have forever, and thinking, oh, there's no way I could do that. Well, you can. And it's always in the technique, isn't it? So today, what I want to do is something very specific, and that is I want to paint an oil drum. And essentially, I want to create this right here. And this is, I did this maybe an hour ago, but I need to do another one. And that'll fit into my scene. Now, in most of the videos that I do, I am not taking ownership for developing these ideas and how to do this. If you want to watch an expert do this technique, go to Sierra West, click on the University tab, and Brett has some amazing videos, and you can watch him do it and learn from an expert. But I'm not an expert, and most of us aren't. And the point of these videos is that someone like myself, who's never done this before tackling this project, we can do it too. And that's important to me. That's really what I wanted to get across to people. And that's going to be my theme. So the first thing I got to do is I'm going to get my oil drum, and I keep those in my little case that I've created. So when I'm at a scene, I can pick out the pieces that I need. Got my oil drum. And one of the things that Brett recommends that I absolutely agree with is to put these on a toothpick so that you can work with them and paint them very easily. And to do that, get a very little drill bit and drill a hole in the bottom of the casting, and then insert your toothpick. But before you insert the toothpick, snip off that little pointy end, otherwise it really won't stick into the hole. And then he recommends, I like as well, to put a little CA glue on the end of that toothpick so that it'll hold as you're kind of going through the process, okay? So there you go, step one, done. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned, they don't come black. These are the first step, which I didn't show, is priming all of the castings. I just use a black spray paint from Rust-Oleum, very simple. And I've got one that the glue's dried, so I'll just pick that out and we'll work with that. And so again, here's what we're trying to do. Create this casting right here. You can see there's two colors on it. Top and bottom band are rust color, and then the middle band and the top are ivory. And now I've actually used two of the techniques that he demonstrates on this drum, and that's what I'll go through. So the first thing we need to do is paint the rust color. And even though it's just going to be ultimately on the top and bottom bands, I'm going to paint that, try that off here. I'm going to paint that across all of the bands on the drum to begin. And the beauty of that toothpick idea is that you can just set your brush on the drum, kind of spin your hand around, and makes it very easy to paint. And the brush I'm using is small enough so that when I do want to paint that middle band, it'll fit right in between the in between the band. And that's important. Okay, so step one is done. Or I guess that would be step two, or whatever step we are on. But what we need to do now is take a wire brush while that paint is still dry, or I'm sorry, while the paint is still wet, and lightly tap on the drum. And this is going to give it that weathered look. And just spin the drum on your workbench as you're tapping. And not difficult, but important to get it all the way through, all the way around, I should say. And that looks great. There's a nice weathered look to that drum. I'll set that on here to dry, and I'm gonna pick one up that I just did a minute ago off air. Exactly the same, but it's dried so that I can go to the next color. And that color is ivory. I'm using AK. I don't know how to pronounce their brands necessarily, but this paint is, acrylic paint is very nice, holds colors very well. So clean off my brush. Just a little thing of water, paper towel, get that red off. Dip it in the ivory, and not too much paint, we don't need a lot. And then the first thing I'm going to do is just paint the top of the drum, and get a nice, get a lot of paint on there, but get it not too much where we go. It's perfect. We'll see, you'll see. It doesn't have to be on there perfect. Again, we're weathering and making things look old and beaten down, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And then this is where you really want to take your time, put the brush right above one of the bands, which I'm doing along the lower band right now, and spin that drum around. I think that looks pretty good. And while that is wet, I am going to submerge it in isopropyl alcohol. Just get it for a few seconds, doesn't have to, you can play around with it, and take a little sponge and just tap on that white ivory paint that I just put on, kind of pulling some of that paint off, and not too hard, very lightly. Otherwise you'll take all the paint off. And on the middle band, it'll kind of pull the white, and you'll expose a little bit of that red underneath, which is really the look I'm looking for. And there you go, okay? And we're ready for the final step. Set that in here. We'll pull that one out that I showed, and one more step to go on this to make it complete, and that is to chalk it and weather it with some of our artist powders. I use the Rembrandt artist chalk, pastel chalk. I'm going to use 4083, a nice brown, 700.5 black, and then maybe I'll put a little rust in here, put a little 4113 burnt sienna. And stick this here for a second, get a razor blade, and just shave off some of that the powder, the chalk. I like just to make a couple piles, and I'll do this in bulk when I'm doing more of these, or when I'm using the same chalk when I do the wood as well. And then I've got a brush that I use for my chalk, and put a little bit of the black on it, just kind of pulling down from the top a bit. And this, if you've used chalk before, a little goes a long way, especially black. You want to be real careful you don't overdo it, but just kind of pull a little bit down from the top down, and then maybe I'll take some of the kind of the brownish color and just cover it throughout, maybe a little bit on top, make it so that's dirty. And then maybe put a little bit of that rust on top as well. And then you've got a nice weathered, now he talks about putting it back in alcohol. I'm not quite sure why we do this yet, but, and then let it dry and all that. Oh, it really does actually, it's actually the first time I did that, but I could see it really pulls the colors of that chalk really nicely. So pulling it off camera, love the way that looks. I told you, real-time demonstration here. Never did that before. I usually stop at the chalk, but that last step of putting in the alcohol, when that dries, that's gonna look really, really nice. All right, so there you go. Not hard, officially 12 minutes, but half of that was me talking. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'll show more techniques later, and I'll love to show this this model when I'm done, whenever that is. We'll see. Thanks for listening and watching.